All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Rational Men, Irrational Women, Navigating the Gender Wars, written by Conrad Riker, available now, links in description. Borderline, narcissistic women traits, the hidden logic behind the public ritual. I first saw the protocol in action on a Tuesday. A colleague, competent, measured, exact, was informed by a panel of functionaries that his factual correction of a female co-worker's error constituted a violation of her psychological safety. He had not raised his voice. He had not insulted. He had cited a number that was wrong and replaced it with one that was right. The word non-abrasive appeared 3 times in the written reprimand, as though the highest virtue of a civilization were the texture of a sponge. The institution was human resources, but the theology was older. Somewhere between the factory floor and the sensitivity seminar, the workplace had been quietly reconsecrated as a temple of therapeutic compliance, a space where a woman's feeling that she had been disrespected became ipso facto proof that she had been, no evidence beyond the declaration, no cross-examination. The verb felt had been promoted from psychological state to prosecutorial weapon, and the man who asked for documentation was recast as the aggressor for asking. This is not a grievance. It is a diagnosis. What I watched happen that morning was the epistemic inversion executed as bureaucratic liturgy. Objective reality dethroned, subjective distress enthroned, and male rationality patient evidentiary. Corrective renamed as violence. The man stood accused not of what he did, but of what she decided it meant, and the protocol's architects had already ensured that no distinction between the two would be permitted. And every man in that room felt it before he could name it. The vertigo of standing in a civilization that once rewarded his competence and now prosecutes it as pathology. He cannot locate the moment the floor tilted, because the revolution did not arrive with a decree, but with a definition. The silent substitution of one word's meaning for another. Repeated until the replacement felt like kindness and the original felt like cruelty. What I'm going to do in these pages is name every tile of that tilted floor, trace who laid it, and restore the grammar that makes it level again. Policy under examination. The mandatory psychological safety and lived experience arbitration protocol. Corporate Human Resources Department. Inspiration year 1954. Natural law origin point. The Aristotelian Thomistic distinction between objective truth, what is, and subjective feeling, what is felt, and the Roman concept of paterfamilias as the rational head who judges based on evidence, not emotion. Natural law holds that justice requires impartiality and that authority is derived from competence and duty, not from the intensity of one's grievance. Overall vector size. 8/10 minus a bureaucratic mechanism that inverts the hierarchy of truth, elevating subjective emotional distress over objective factual reality, thereby dissolving male agency and meritocratic order into a miasma of therapeutic compliance. Vector map, policy inversion table, the mandatory psychological safety and lived experience arbitration protocol. Institution, Corporate Human Resources Department, inspirational year, 1954 overall vector size 8 policy. The Mandatory Psychological Safety and Lived Experience Arbitration Protocol, a bureaucratic mechanism that inverts the hierarchy of truth, elevating subjective emotional distress over objective factual reality, thereby dissolving male agency and meritocratic order into a miasma of therapeutic compliance. Natural law origin. The Aristotelian Thomistic distinction between objective truth, what is, and subjective feeling, what is felt, and the Roman concept of paterfamilias as the rational head who judges based on evidence, not emotion. Natural law holds that justice requires impartiality and that authority is derived from competence and duty, not from the intensity of one's grievance. Ideological source, critical theory fused with therapeutic governance and postmodern feminism. Vector 1, the epistemic inversion, natural law anchor, objective reality, movement type, ersatz replacement. Dialectic mechanism, thesis, fact, antithesis, feeling. Synthesis, feeling overrides fact. Fallacy, subjective validation fallacy. Vice or sin, pride claiming one's internal state is the ultimate arbiter of external reality. Vector size, 9. Institutional effect. In HR disputes, a man's logical explanation of his actions is dismissed if the woman claims she felt disrespected. The lived experience of the complainant becomes sole evidence, rendering objective facts irrelevant. Logic is pathologized as aggression or tone policing. Path home, restore the primacy of evidence. Require felt claims to be substantiated by observable actions. Re-establish the distinction between offense, subjective, and harm, objective. Vector 2, the paternal inversion. Natural law anchor. Fatherhood as authority. Movement type, problem, reaction, solution. Dialectic mechanism, problem, male authority, reaction, it is oppressive. Solution, neutralized via bureaucracy. Fallacy, genetic fallacy. Vice or sin, ressentiment, envy of male competence and authority. Vector size, 7. Institutional effect, the father figure, manager, husband, provider, is redefined not as protector and guide, but as potential source of microaggressions. His authority is stripped and replaced by a committee of safety officers who monitor his tone. The provider becomes the provider of emotional labor. Path home. Reclaim the title of father as head of household and enterprise, responsible for provision and protection, not for managing the emotional whims of subordinates. Vector 3, the meritocratic inversion. Natural law anchor, competence and duty. Movement type, dialectical subversion, dialectic mechanism. Thesis, merit, antithesis, privilege, synthesis, identity over merit. Fallacy, ad hominem divided by guilt, by association. Vice or sin, envy of those who succeed by natural ability. Vector size, 8, institutional effect. Promotions and rewards are no longer based on quality of work, but on alignment with ideological narrative. A man who produces results but lacks inclusive language is penalized. A woman who produces mediocrity but signals trauma is elevated. Path home, return to the Roman ideal of virtus, excellence of character and skill. Reward the builder, not the critic. Vector 4, the sexual inversion. Natural law anchor, sexual complementarity. Movement type, biological denial. Dialectic mechanism, thesis, nature, antithesis, social construct, synthesis, fluidity power, fallacy, category mistake, vice or sin, lust for control, denying nature to dominate it. Vector size, 6. Institutional effect. The biological reality of male aggression and female nurturing is inverted. Male assertiveness is coded as toxic. Female passivity is coded as resilient. The workplace becomes a space where men must perform emotional vulnerability to survive, while women retain the power to judge. Path home. Acknowledge sexual difference as complementary, not hierarchical. Men lead through strength and calm. Women nurture through wisdom and grace. Both are honored, but distinct. Vector 5, the justice inversion. Natural law anchor, due process. Movement type, procedural corruption. Dialectic mechanism, thesis, fair trial. Antithesis, power imbalance synthesis, restorative justice. Fallacy, moving the goalposts, vice or sin, cowardice, fear of conflict, desire for easy resolution. Vector size, 9. Institutional effect. The accused man is presumed guilty until he proves he understood the impact of his actions. The standard of proof shifts from beyond reasonable doubt to preponderance of feeling. The process is designed not to find truth, but to extract an apology and a fine financial or reputational. Path home, restore the presumption of innocence, require clear, specific charges. Ensure the judge is impartial and not a stakeholder in the ideological outcome. Natural law essay, the rule that entered the institution. Safety, say the word aloud, salvus, whole, unbroken, intact. The Latin root carries the weight of a man standing in his own house, sword on the wall, children fed, roof solid, enemies outside the gate. That is safety, physical integrity, economic security. The condition under which a civilization can build, breed, defend, and worship. Now watch what they did to it. Somewhere between the second wave of feminism and the arrival of human resources as a theocratic apparatus, the word safety was kidnapped, dragged into a windowless conference room, and surgically hollowed out. In its place, a quivering therapeutic blob that means freedom from emotional discomfort. The HR department, that soft-jawed bureaucracy staffed by people who have never built anything, defended anything, or produced anything measurable, now possesses a protocol. They call it the Psychological Safety and Lived Experience Arbitration Protocol. The name alone should tell you everything. It sounds like something a Politburo functionary dreamed up after reading too much Marcuse and not enough history. Here's how it works in practice. A man, let us call him Tom, has been a senior engineer for 11 years. He ships product, he mentors juniors, he arrives early and leaves late. One Tuesday, a female colleague named Brianna, hired 18 months ago during a diversity surge, proposes in a planning meeting that the team abandon its tested architecture for a framework she read about in a Medium post. Tom, without raising his voice, without insult, without profanity, says, "That won't scale. We tried something similar in 2019. The latency costs were unacceptable. Here are the benchmarks." He shows the benchmarks. He shows the data. He is being virtuous in the classical sense, exercising prudentia, practical wisdom, the first of the cardinal virtues. He is doing what a competent man does, protecting the enterprise from a bad decision. Brianna does not counter with data. She does not present counter-arguments. She does what the protocol has trained her to do. She later visits the HR office and reports that she felt unsafe during the meeting. Tom's tone, she explains, was aggressive. His dismissal of her idea created a hostile environment. She references her lived experience as a woman in tech. She may or may not cry. It does not matter. The protocol does not require tears. It merely requires the invocation of felt harm. Now watch the machinery turn. Tom is called in. He is not shown the complaint in detail. He is not told what specific words he used that constituted aggression. He is told. And this is the critical move, that the impact of his words matters more than his intent. His data, his benchmarks, his 11-year track record, irrelevant. What matters is that Brianna felt something. And in the new dispensation, her feeling is not an opinion, it is evidence. It is, in fact, the highest form of evidence, because it proceeds from a member of a protected category whose lived experience carries epistemic privilege, a theological concept dressed in sociological clothing. Tom is asked if he understands the impact of his behavior. If he says yes, he has confessed. If he says no, he is lacking self-awareness and requires re-education. They call it coaching, the way totalitarians always rename punishment. If he asks for evidence, he is defensive. If he points out that his assessment was technically correct, he is centering his own perspective and invalidating lived experience. The protocol is a Kafka trap. Every exit is a confession. Every protest is proof of guilt. Every demand for due process is recoded as additional harm. The accused pays a debt he never contracted to a creditor who manufactures the currency of grievance on the spot. Call it what it is, a super debt, an obligation that can never be discharged because the amount owed is determined entirely by the complainant's mood, and the collection agency is the entire institutional apparatus. Tom is issued a warning. It goes in his file. Brianna is promoted 8 months later. Tom begins looking for another job. He will find one. He is competent, and competence still has a market, but the institution he leaves behind is poorer, dumber, and more feminine in the worst possible sense, more sensitive to status, less sensitive to truth, more attuned to who is aligned with the right faction, less attuned to who actually does the work. That is the protocol. It is not a joke. It is not a parody. It is operating right now in every Fortune 500 company, every university administrative office, every government agency, every nonprofit. It is the mechanism by which the institution you serve, pay taxes to, and depend upon has been captured and turned against you. The natural law origin point. Natural law is not a suggestion. It is not a cultural preference. It is the grammar of reality, the built-in architecture of the cosmos that governs what flourishes and what collapses. You do not invent natural law any more than you invent gravity. You discover it. You conform to it or you suffer the consequences. The Western tradition, Greek reason, Roman jurisprudence, Judeo-Christian revelation converges on a single insight. Truth exists independently of the observer's feelings. This is the foundation. Remove it, and the entire edifice of law, science, virtue, and civics collapses into a swamp of competing subjectivities. Aristotle gave us the principle of non-contradiction. A thing cannot be both true and false in the same respect at the same time. A statement about reality is either accurate or it is not. Your feelings about that statement have no bearing on its truth value. Emotional reaction is not an epistemological category. This is not harsh. It is simply how the world works. Fire burns, whether you find it offensive or not. Aquinas refined this into a comprehensive moral architecture. Natural law is the rational creature's participation in the eternal law. The human intellect apprehends certain basic goods, life, truth, ordered society, the propagation of the species, and reason dictates that we pursue these goods and avoid their privation. Justice, in the Thomistic framework, means rendering to each what is due, not demanded, due. There is a difference, and that difference is the line between civilization and mob rule. The Roman contribution was structural. The paterfamilias was not a tyrant. He was the rational head of the household, the man responsible for provision, protection, moral instruction, and the transmission of culture to the next generation. His authority was tied to his duty. He judged disputes not by the intensity of complaint, but by the weight of evidence. He was impartial because impartiality is the prerequisite of justice. The Roman magistrate did not ask, "How did this make you feel?" He asked, "Cui bono?" Who benefits? What happened? What is the evidence? What is the law? These three streams, Greek rationalism, Roman legalism, Christian moral theology, produced something unprecedented in human history. A civilization that took evidence seriously, that separated offense from harm, that demanded impartial judgment under a single standard of law, and that recognized the household, governed by a responsible father, as the fundamental unit of social order. That is the origin point. That is what we are measuring against. That is what was betrayed the inversion vectors. Every heresy contains within itself a distorted echo of the truth it denies. The psychological safety protocol is not random madness. It is a systematic inversion of 5 natural law principles, each one turned on its head with surgical precision. Trace each vector, name each demon. The epistemic inversion, feeling over fact. Natural law anchor, objective reality exists and is knowable. The inversion, objective reality is dissolved. Lived experience replaces evidence as the supreme epistemic category. What is felt becomes what is. Premise 1. If truth is whatever the complainant feels, then truth does not exist as an independent category. Premise 2. If truth does not exist as an independent category, then no claim can be tested against reality. Conclusion. The protocol renders all claims unfalsifiable and therefore irrational. This is the master inversion, the one that makes all others possible. The etymology tells the story. Episteme, knowledge, understanding, scientific cognition. The protocol does not merely ignore epistemology, it replaces it with a crude emotional empiricism where the datum of consciousness, I felt unsafe, is treated as a settled fact about the external world. The Romans had a word for what happens when private feeling overrides public evidence. Tyrannus, the tyrant, is the man whose arbitrary will replace his law. In the old model, one man's whim oppressed millions. In the new model, any woman's mood can end a man's career. The scale is smaller, the mechanism identical. Arbitrary power exercised without accountability, dressed in the language of compassion. You have seen this in practice. A male professor at a major university let the details remain general because the pattern is universal. Presents peer-reviewed criminological data showing that a specific campus policy is ineffective. A female student files a Title IX complaint claiming the lecture caused trauma. The professor is removed from teaching the course. The data is never addressed. The student's felt harm overrides decades of peer-reviewed research. When asked what specifically was false in the professor's presentation, the student responds that the framework itself is violent. This is not argument. It is a veto issued by someone who has been taught that her emotional reaction constitutes a counter-argument. The vice here is superbia, pride. The prideful man, in the classical taxonomy, does not merely sin against others. He sins against reality itself. He places his own estimation above the objective order. He says, "My internal state is the measure of all things." This is what Lucifer said, metaphorically, before the fall. Non serviam I will not serve. Not God, not nature, not evidence, not the logos that orders the cosmos. The protocol institutionalizes that refusal. It makes pride a job requirement. 2. The paternal inversion, fatherhood as suspect. Natural law anchor. Fatherhood as authority, the responsible male head who provides, protects, and judges with impartiality. The inversion, the father figure is recoded as a threat. Every male in authority is a potential abuser. His guidance becomes microaggression. His standards become gatekeeping. His presence becomes intimidation. The Roman paterfamilias was honored because he bore the weight. He was the one who stayed when things got hard. He was the one who went to war, who worked the fields, who enforced discipline, who answered for the family's conduct before the community. His authority was not arbitrary. It was earned through the assumption of duties that would crush a weaker man. The protocol does not merely ignore this tradition, it pathologizes it. Consider the manager who holds his team to high standards. He gives direct feedback. He rejects sloppy work. He insists on deadlines. In a healthy institution, these behaviors are recognized as leadership, the exercise of auctoritas, the Roman concept of moral authority earned through competence and demonstrated responsibility. Under the protocol, these same behaviors are recoded. Direct feedback becomes harshness. High standards become unrealistic expectations. Deadline enforcement becomes creating a toxic culture. The manager is referred to coaching. His authority is transferred to an HR officer who has never managed a project, never shipped a product, never made payroll, but who has completed a 6-week certificate in restorative practices. This is resentment in the Nietzschean sense, the revenge of the incompetent against the competent, enacted not through self-improvement, but through the revaluation of values. The weak cannot become strong, so they redefine strength as pathology. The father cannot be removed from the home by force, so he is removed by policy. His authority is not defeated in open argument. It is declared inherently abusive a priori without evidence by definitional fiat. The consequence is exactly what you would predict. Remove the father from the institution, and the institution becomes an orphanage, chaotic, aimless, governed by the loudest complainer rather than the wisest judge. Every metric of institutional health declines. Turnover rises, productivity falls, innovation dies. The organization survives on accumulated capital, financial, cultural, reputational, until that capital is exhausted. Then it fails. This is not speculation. It is happening right now in real time across every institution captured by the Protocol 2.3. The meritocratic inversion, identity over competence. Natural law anchor, virtus, excellence of character and skill. Merit, proven through demonstrated work, is the just basis for reward. The inversion, merit is recast as privilege. Competence is suspect because it implies someone else is less competent, and that differential might correlate with identity categories. Therefore, rewards must be distributed according to demographic representation, not individual achievement. This vector carries a particular stench because it attacks the one thing a man can control: his own effort. You cannot choose your ancestry, your height, your neurochemistry, or the economic conditions of your birth, but you can choose to work, you can choose to master a craft, you can choose to produce something valuable. The entire Western tradition of virtus, from the Roman citizen soldier to the medieval guild master to the Enlightenment scientist to the American entrepreneur, rests on this single proposition: that a man's work is his offering, and that his work should be judged by its quality, not by the identity of the worker. The protocol destroys this. It does so through a two-step maneuver. First, it asserts that all outcome disparities are evidence of systemic bias, an unfalsifiable claim, because the absence of disparate impact can always be attributed to hidden bias or implicit attitudes that cannot be measured but must be believed. Second, it mandates that all hiring, promotion, and reward mechanisms be audited for demographic balance. When the audit reveals that men dominate technical leadership roles because men disproportionately possess the technical training, the obsessive work patterns, and the risk tolerance that technical leadership requires, the protocol does not ask whether the candidates were evaluated fairly. It assumes the differential is proof of injustice and mandates corrective redistribution. You have watched this play out. The engineer who ships 3x the codebase of her peers is passed over for promotion because she does not model inclusive behaviors. The executive who saved the division from bankruptcy is demoted because his leadership style lacks emotional intelligence. The salesman who doubled his quota is replaced by a committee that has never closed a deal. A syllogism for the room. Premise 1. If merit is replaced by identity as the standard of reward, then competence becomes a liability. Premise 2. If competence becomes a liability, institutions will select against it. Conclusion. Institutions governed by this protocol will be captured by incompetence. Check the news. The vice is invidia, envy, not the productive kind that says, I will work harder to match him. The consuming kind that says, if I cannot have what he has, I will destroy the system that recognizes his superiority. Envy is the only one of the 7 deadly sins that brings no pleasure to the sinner. It is pure, self-devouring resentment, and it is the engine of the entire protocol. IV, the sexual inversion, complementarity erased, natural law anchor, sexual complementarity. Men and women are different biologically, psychologically, temperamentally, and these differences are complementary, not hierarchical. Each sex contributes something the other lacks, neither is complete without the other. The inversion, difference itself, is denied. Male traits, assertiveness, competition, risk-taking, emotional steadiness under pressure, are coded as toxic. Female traits, agreeableness, risk aversion, emotional expressiveness, sensitivity to social dynamics, are coded as normative. The organization is remade in the feminine image. Male behavior is treated as a disorder requiring treatment. The biological denial at the heart of this vector is staggering. Decades of cross-cultural research, David Buss's 47 culture study of mate preferences, Simon Baron-Cohen's work on empathizing systemizing brain types, the entire literature on sex differences in personality, aggression, occupational interest, and risk preference demonstrates with the consistency of a metronome that men and women differ in measurable, predictable, and functionally significant ways. These differences are not social constructs. They are not imposed by patriarchy. They are observed in every human culture ever studied, in every era, under every economic system. They have deep evolutionary roots and corresponding neuroendocrine architecture. The protocol ignores all of this. It declares, by bureaucratic fiat, that any behavioral difference between men and women in the workplace is evidence of bias. Male assertiveness becomes aggression. Male directness becomes abrasiveness. Male stoicism becomes emotional unavailability. Female behaviors that would be immediately flagged in a male gossiping, forming exclusionary cliques, crying to influence outcomes, are either ignored or recoded as relational intelligence and emotional labor. In 2015, a software engineer at Google named James Damore wrote a memo arguing carefully and with extensive citations that Google's gender disparity in technical roles might partially reflect known sex differences in interest and temperament rather than purely reflecting bias. He suggested that Google's diversity programs, by assuming the blank slate model, might be counterproductive. The memo was measured, academic in tone, and explicitly stated that women should not be discouraged from technical careers. For this, he was fired, not refuted, fired. The company, one of the most powerful information monopolies in human history, declared that the scientific literature on sex differences was unsayable. The feeling of female employees who encountered the memo overrode the entirety of evolutionary psychology, that is, the sexual inversion in its purest form. Reality is offensive, therefore reality must be suppressed. The man who names reality is punished. The woman who denies it is protected. The sin here is what the scholastics called concupiscentia dominendi, the lust for domination. Not the healthy ambition of a man who wants to build and achieve, but the sick will to control that demands nature itself be remade to flatter the controller's ego. You cannot abolish sex differences by decree. You can only punish the people who notice them. And that is precisely what the protocol does. V. The justice inversion. Due process dissolved. Natural law anchor. Due process. The presumption of innocence. The right to know the charges. The right to confront the accuser. The right to impartial judgment. The requirement that evidence meet a specified standard. The inversion. The accused is presumed guilty. The charges are vague. The accuser is shielded. The standard of proof collapses into preponderance of feeling. The process is designed not to discover truth, but to extract a confession and administer punishment. This is the most dangerous vector because it strikes at the heart of the rule of law, the single greatest achievement of Western civilization. Magna Carta, the Constitutio Criminalis Carolina, the Bill of Rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. All of these are variations on a single theme. The state or institution cannot punish you without showing cause, presenting evidence, and giving you the opportunity to defend yourself. This principle was purchased with centuries of blood. It was won by men who fought kings, inquisitions, and revolutionary tribunals to establish the simple, radical proposition that power must answer to law. The protocol casually discards this inheritance. Under Title IX, weaponized by the 2011 Dear Colleague letter from the Obama-era Office for Civil Rights, universities established parallel justice systems operating outside the protections of actual law. The standard of evidence was dropped to preponderance of the evidence, barely above a coin flip. The accused was frequently denied legal representation, denied the right to cross-examine the accuser, and denied access to the specific charges until the hearing itself. The investigator was often the same person who served as prosecutor and judge. The process was designed to produce convictions, not truth. The results were predictable. In 2016, a male student at the University of Tennessee was expelled based on a complaint filed months after the alleged incident. He was not told the specific allegations until the hearing. His accuser's accounts changed 3 times. Physical evidence contradicted her timeline. The university's investigator did not interview key witnesses. He was expelled anyway. It took a federal lawsuit costing years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to overturn the decision. The accuser faced no consequences. The university faced no consequences. The bureaucrats who ran the tribunal faced no consequences. The only person who paid was the man who was accused. This is not justice, it is a ritual. The institution selects a scapegoat, performs the ceremony of adjudication to confer the appearance of legitimacy, and offers the sacrifice to the grievance gods. The process is the punishment. Even when a man is exonerated, the months of suspension, legal costs, reputational damage, and psychological torment constitute a sentence already served. The protocol operates on the medieval logic of trial by ordeal. If you drown, you were guilty. If you survive, God has spared you. But you are still wet and exhausted, and your neighbors now regard you with suspicion. The vice is cowardice, timor, institutional cowardice. The administrators who implement these protocols know they are unjust. They do it anyway, because they fear the accusations, the protests, the media coverage, the federal investigations, the social media mobs. They trade justice for quiet. They surrender the innocent to buy peace for themselves. And they call it restorative. The fallacies and vices that powered the fall. Every inversion requires intellectual cover. The protocol does not survive scrutiny, so it must be shielded from scrutiny by a phalanx of fallacies, rhetorical mechanisms designed to short-circuit reasoning and prevent the victim from naming what is being done to him. Catalog them, memorize them. When you encounter them, you will know exactly where you are. The subjective validation fallacy. I felt harmed, therefore I was harmed. This is the keystone of the entire protocol. It collapses the distinction between internal state and external event. A feeling is treated as a fact about the world rather than a fact about the feeler. Response: your feelings are real as feelings. They are not real as descriptions of my conduct. I felt threatened is a report on your nervous system, not on my behavior. If you want to claim my behavior was threatening, describe the behavior and show your work. The genetic fallacy, this argument comes from a man, therefore it reflects patriarchal bias. The origin of a claim is used to dismiss it without engaging its content. Response: truth is not determined by the identity of the speaker. Ad hominem is the oldest fallacy in the book because it is the laziest. If my data is wrong, show the error. If my logic is unsound, show the break. My chromosomes are not a counter-argument. Guilt by association. This man's behavior is part of a systemic pattern of male dominance. The individual is held responsible for a statistical aggregate or historical narrative he did not create and does not control. Response: I am responsible for my actions, not for the actions of every man who ever lived. Collective guilt is the foundation of every pogrom, every purge, every genocide in history. It was wrong when the Romans used it against the Christians, wrong when the Inquisition used it against the Jews, and it is wrong now, the Kafka trap. If you deny you are sexist, that proves you are sexist, because only sexists deny being sexist. The denial is defined as proof of guilt. The accused is given no path to innocence. Response: this is not reasoning. It is a closed logical system that is unfalsifiable by construction. Any theory that cannot be falsified by any possible evidence is not a theory. It is a dogma. And dogmas imposed by institutional force are not arguments. They are commands, the Mort and Bailey. The feminist asserts a radical claim. All heterosexual sex is rape, or meritocracy is a myth designed to preserve white male supremacy. When challenged, she retreats to a trivially true claim: women should be treated fairly, or people should be kind to each other. When the challenger agrees with the trivial claim, the radical claim is reasserted as though it had been conceded. Response: do not allow the conflation, pin them to the mot. Do you agree that merit exists? Do you agree that individuals should be judged as individuals? Do you agree that feelings are not evidence? Force the distinction. Never let them retreat without conceding the radical premise, the no true Scotsman evasion. That isn't real feminism. Real feminism just means equality. Every feminist atrocity is dismissed as not real feminism, making the term unfalsifiable and therefore meaningless. Response: if every form of feminism that produces bad outcomes is defined away as not real, then feminism is whatever the speaker wants it to be in the moment. A word that means everything means nothing. If feminism means equality, then it must include equality of accountability, equality of standards, equality of due process. If it does not include those things, it does not mean equality. It means privilege for women. Name it accordingly. The thought terminating cliché. It's not my job to educate you. Check your privilege. Lived experience is valid. These are not arguments. They are verbal circuit breakers designed to end inquiry. Response: if it is not your job to explain your position, then it is not my job to accept it. Valid does not mean true. It means internally consistent. A delusion is internally consistent. That does not make it a description of reality. Each of these fallacies corresponds to a vice, a moral failure in the soul of the person deploying it. Pride, resentment, envy, cowardice, the will to control. The protocol is not merely intellectually broken, it is morally broken. It selects for the worst impulses in human nature, the impulse to punish without evidence, to accuse without consequence, to dominate without competence. to parasitize without shame, and it rewards those impulses with institutional power. That is what makes it so dangerous and so difficult to dislodge. You are not fighting bad arguments, you are fighting installed incentives. The Cultural Revolution ratchet. The protocol did not appear overnight. It was constructed step by step, through a process that resembles nothing so much as Maoist gradualism, each increment small enough to avoid triggering resistance, each one normalizing the previous deviation. Until the institution has been transformed, and the inmates do not remember what the asylum looked like before. Step 1. Redefine safety. Safety stops meaning physical security and starts meaning freedom from intellectual discomfort. The word is hijacked because no one can oppose safety without sounding cruel. This is language capture, the first move in every ideological revolution. Step 2. Elevate lived experience above evidence. Personal testimony from approved identity categories is declared the highest form of knowledge. This destroys the meritocracy of ideas. If your claim to truth is based on who you are rather than what you can demonstrate, then debate is impossible, and hierarchy is identity-based, not competence-based. Step 3. Create a commissar class. Safety officers, diversity officers, equity coordinators, a new bureaucracy whose power derives entirely from the protocol. These people produce nothing. Their function is surveillance, enforcement, and the identification of deviation. They are the secular equivalent of the inquisitor, with the same immunity from accountability and the same incentive to find heresy wherever they look. Step 4. Pathologize normal male behavior. Unconscious bias training does not correct bias. It installs the assumption that bias is omnipresent and that men are its primary carriers. Normal male behavior, directness, competitiveness, stoicism, high standards is recoded as dysfunction. Men are told they are sick and that the institution has the cure. Step 5. Replace merit with equity. Hiring, promotion, and reward shift from who does the best work to who matches the demographic target. Competence becomes secondary to compliance. The institution begins to accumulate dead weight, people who were hired for their category, not their capability, and the productive core is expected to carry the load without complaint. Step 6. Criminalize tone. How you say something becomes more important than what you say. A true statement delivered firmly is punished more severely than a false statement delivered gently. This gives women who are on average more skilled at verbal softening and emotional modulation a structural advantage in any dispute regardless of the merits. Step 7. Weaponize trauma. Trauma becomes a status category that grants immunity from criticism, accountability, and normal professional expectations. The more traumatized you claim to be, the more power you wield. Trauma is no longer a clinical condition requiring treatment. It is a political credential. Step 8. Convert work into therapy. The workplace is no longer a place where things are produced. It is a space where experiences are held and processed. Production is secondary to the management of feelings. The organization becomes a support group with a balance sheet, and the balance sheet is deteriorating. Step 9. Abolish objective truth. Multiple realities based on identity replaces the shared commitment to factual accuracy. There is your truth and my truth and her truth, but never the truth. Without a shared reality, no institution can function. Every decision becomes a negotiation between competing subjective claims, mediated by power rather than evidence. Step 10. Finalize the inversion. The man is the problem. The woman is the solution. The bureaucracy is the priesthood. The protocol is the liturgy. The accusation is the sacrament. The apology is the tithe. The re-education is the penance. The institution is now a church, and you are the heretic. This ratchet only turns in one direction. Each step consolidates power and makes reversal more costly. The institutions that have passed through all 10 stages are not reformable from within. They must either collapse under the weight of their own incompetence or be rebuilt from scratch by men who remember what they were for. The human and civilizational cost. Here is where the abstractions become flesh. Men are killing themselves. The male suicide rate in the United States is nearly 4 times the female rate. In the UK, it is 3 times. In every developed nation, the same pattern holds. Men are dying quietly, consistently, in numbers that would constitute a public health emergency if they mapped onto any other demographic category. The protocol's contribution to this is direct and measurable. When a man is falsely accused, stripped of due process, expelled, fired, publicly shamed, separated from his children, and ordered to pay for the privilege of his own destruction, a percentage of those men will choose death. The institutions that implemented the protocol know this. They do not care. The protocol's purpose is not to reduce harm. Its purpose is to demonstrate power. Families are being destroyed. The family court system, the domestic enforcement arm of the same ideology, operates on the same principles as the HR protocol. Accusation replaces evidence. The mother's feelings are treated as facts about the father's character. The best interest of the child is invoked to justify separating children from fit fathers, because a father who insists on his rights is combative and a father who accepts his losses is absent. No-fault divorce, coupled with presumptive maternal custody and child support formulas that function as transfer payments, has created a system where a woman can unilaterally dissolve a family, take the children, take the house, and collect a stream of income from the man she expelled, all without proving a single instance of wrongdoing. The father's bond with his children, the deepest, most sacrificial, most civilizing bond a man can have, is treated as a negotiable commodity, contingent on the mother's satisfaction and the court's ideological disposition. Boys are failing in every metric of educational achievement: literacy, graduation rates, college enrollment, grade point average. Boys are falling behind girls. The education system, captured by the same therapeutic feminist ideology, has been restructured around female learning styles and behavioral norms. Boys are pathologized for normal male behavior, physical energy, competitiveness, impulse to action, and medicated into compliance. Attention deficit diagnoses in boys outpace girls by a factor of 3. The school-to-prison pipeline begins in the kindergarten, where a 5-year-old boy is suspended for playing cops and robbers because his finger gun constituted a safety violation. Men are withdrawing. The labor force participation rate for prime-age men has been declining for decades. Male friendship networks are collapsing. Marriage rates are plummeting. Birth rates are below replacement across the entire developed world. Men are checking out from work, from family, from civic engagement, from the social contract itself. They are not doing this because they are lazy or broken. They are doing this because they have looked at the deal being offered to them and have made the rational calculation that the costs exceed the benefits. When you tell a man that his work will be judged by his identity rather than his merit, that his authority in his own home is suspect by default, that his children can be taken from him on an accusation, that his speech is constrained by the emotional fragility of his colleagues, and that any attempt to name these injustices will be recoded as evidence of his guilt. When you tell him all of this and then ask him to contribute, he stops contributing. This is not dysfunction. It is a market response to a rigged price. The civilization level cost is the accumulation of all of this. A civilization that cannot socialize its men into productive, invested, married fathers is a civilization that has decided to die. There is no third option. Rome fell when its men stopped fighting for it. Every civilization that has elevated female complaint above male contribution, that has substituted bureaucratic regulation for paternal authority, that has replaced the pursuit of excellence with the management of grievance, every single one has entered terminal decline. You are watching it happen the way home. The protocol is powerful. It is not invincible. It is in fact remarkably fragile, built on fallacies that collapse under sustained logical pressure, sustained only by institutional force and the cowardice of the men who should have resisted it. The way home is hard, but it is simple. It requires the recovery of what was always true. 1. Reclaim the word safety. Safety means physical and economic security, the condition under which a man can work, build, and provide without fear of arbitrary destruction. It does not mean protection from discomfort. When someone says they feel unsafe, ask, are you physically threatened? Has your property been damaged? Has a crime been committed? If the answer is no, the appropriate response is not accommodation. It is re-education, theirs, not yours. 2. Restore the authority of the father. The father in the home and in the institution is not a suspect. He is the foundation. A household without a father is statistically correlated with every social pathology measurable. Poverty, crime, educational failure, mental illness, teen pregnancy, substance abuse. This is not ideology, it is data. The institution that undermines paternal authority undermines its own future. Restore the father, honor his sacrifice, protect his rights, give him back the authority that corresponds to his responsibility. 3. Return to merit. Judge work by its quality, judge candidates by their demonstrated capability, judge arguments by their evidence and reasoning. Identity is not an achievement, trauma is not a qualification, discomfort is not evidence of injustice. Build institutions that select for virtus, excellence of character and skill, and watch them flourish. 4. Restore due process. The presumption of innocence is not optional. It is the load-bearing wall of the entire legal tradition you inherited. Demand specific charges, demand evidence, demand the right to confront the accuser, demand an impartial adjudicator. If the institution cannot provide these, refuse to participate. Document everything. Litigate when necessary. Make due process violations expensive. 5. Distinguish offense from harm. This is the single most important conceptual distinction. Harm is objective. Physical injury, financial loss, reputational damage through false statement. Offense is subjective, the emotional reaction to a stimulus. You have a right to be free from harm. You do not have a right to be free from offense. No one does. A civilization that tries to protect everyone from offense protects no one from anything except the consequences of their own fragility. 6. Honor the mother without infantilizing her. Motherhood is a high calling. Nurturing is a genuine good. Female contributions to civilization are real, valuable, and irreplaceable. None of this requires pretending that women are incapable of cruelty, deception, manipulation, or strategic use of accusation. Women are human. They possess agency. They are capable of virtue and vice. Honor the virtuous. Hold the vicious accountable. The same standard. Always. 7. Restore male spaces and male bonds. Men need other men. They need spaces, physical and social, where they can speak frankly, compete intensely, and build solidarity without the performative emotional labor that female presence demands. This is not misogyny. It is the recognition that male friendship operates on different principles than female friendship, and that both are legitimate. Build the brotherhood. Protect it. Do not apologize for it. 8. Reject lived experience as a trump card. Personal testimony has value. It is not supreme. Combine it with reason and evidence. A woman's experience of a situation is one data point, not a verdict. Treat it as such. Require corroboration. Ask for specifics. Test the claim against other accounts. This is not cruelty. It is the minimum standard for rational discourse. 9. Define and defend masculinity. Masculinity is not toxicity. It is responsibility. It is provision. It is protection. It is the willingness to stand between danger and the vulnerable. It is the capacity for objective judgment under pressure. It is the strength to tell the truth when the truth is unwelcome. These are virtues. They build everything you see around you. Reclaim them, embody them, teach them to your sons. 10. Build parallel institutions. The institutions captured by the protocol, the universities, the HR departments, the media, the mainline churches, the government agencies will not reform themselves. They are too invested in the ideology, too populated by the commissars, too dependent on the grievance economy. Stop trying to fix them. Build alternatives. Build businesses that operate on merit. Build schools that teach the Western canon. Build churches that honor the logos. Build communities that reward virtue and punish manipulation. Build a civilization within the ruins of the old one, and let the old one watch you thrive. This is the work. It is the work of generations. It begins with a single act of defiance, refusing to accept that a feeling is a fact, that an accusation is a verdict, that a man's worth is determined by his compliance with a protocol designed to erase him. You are a rational man in an irrational age. The protocol wants you silent. The protocol wants you compliant. The protocol wants you to believe that your voice, your labor, your authority, and your love are suspect by default. Refuse. The logos, the rational ordering principle of the cosmos, is not a bureaucratic protocol. It is the truth that sets men free. Return to it, speak it, live it, and watch the protocol dissolve, as all lies dissolve under the pressure of sustained, courageous, unapologetic truth. Restoration path. The way home. 10 restoration protocols. The therapeutic bureaucracy has mapped its inversions. Now we map the return. I reclaim the dictionary. The war begins in words. Safety means your body is intact and your property secure, not that your feelings were spared. Harm requires demonstrable injury. Violence is not speech you dislike. Equality means one rule applied identically, not quotas dressed in moral language. Every conversation is a definitional checkpoint. When someone deploys a captured term, stop them. Ask, define that. Watch the architecture collapse when equity is forced to mean equal outcomes by force, rather than equal opportunity under law. Rebuild your personal lexicon from first principles. Read the actual definitions. Trace etymologies. Virtue comes from virtus, meaning manly excellence. Authority comes from actor, meaning one who originates, creates, founds. These words carry their original charge. Use them. 2. Restore due process as sacred architecture. Due process is not a technicality. It is the architecture separating justice from vengeance, civilization from the mob. In every institution, workplace, university, family court demand presumption of innocence, right to face accusers, impartial adjudicator, evidence standard, right to appeal. If any element is missing, the proceeding is illegitimate. State this plainly. The Believe Women slogan is a suspension of evidence dressed as compassion. It converts accusation into verdict and makes every man a defendant without charges. Reject it, absolutely. Compassion without due process is tyranny wearing a smile. 3. Restore fatherhood as civilizational foundation. Fatherhood is not a wallet, a visitation schedule, or a suspect category. It is the paterfamilias, the embodied authority that orders the household, transmits culture across generations, and stands between the family and the state. No-fault divorce converted marriage into a unilateral contract dissolvable by one party's mood. Family court converted fatherhood into a revenue extraction mechanism. These are not reforms, they are demolitions. The restoration, marriage as covenant, not convenience. Paternal rights as inalienable, not discretionary. Shared parenting as default presumption. The state as spectator, not substitute husband. IV. Defend the family as primary institution. The family precedes the state. This is not opinion, this is historical and anthropological fact. Every attempt to make the state the primary provider, Soviet communes, Swedish social democracy, American welfare bureaucracy, produces fatherlessness, educational collapse, and social fragmentation. A man's first vocation is household formation. This means marriage undertaken with seriousness, children raised with intention, and the home governed as a miniature polity with structure, ritual, and moral instruction. Reject the framing that domestic life is a trap. The trap is the apartment, the dating app, the sterile careerism, the pornography, the lono wireless epidemic. The family is the liberation. V. Reclaim education from ideological capture. The university was built by the church to pursue truth through the liberal arts. Grammar, logic, rhetoric, the trivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, astronomy, the quadrivium. It has been converted into a grievance factory, producing debt and resentment. Pull your children from captured institutions where possible. Build alternatives, classical cooperatives, apprenticeship networks, online academies teaching the Western canon without apology. A man who cannot identify a syllogism, define telos, or distinguish correlation from causation is easy to manipulate. Learn the tools of thought. Teach them to your sons. They are the armor. V. Cultivate virtue as daily practice. Virtue is not a feeling. It is a habit of right action forged through repetition. The cardinal virtues, prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance, are not suggestions. They are the operating system of a functioning man. The deadly sins inverted by the therapeutic state must be named and resisted. Pride becomes self-care. Envy becomes equity. Sloth becomes rest as resistance. Lust becomes sex positivity. Wrath becomes righteous anger. Gluttony becomes body positivity. Greed becomes self-optimization. Daily disciplines, early rising, physical training, prayer or meditation, reading, honest work, build a schedule that enforces these. A man ruled by appetite is not free. He is livestock being fattened. Seventh. Reassert logic over emotionalism. The logos is not merely rationality. It is the ordering principle of the cosmos, the divine reason that structures reality. To think logically is to participate in the architecture of existence itself. When lived experience is elevated above evidence, the hierarchy of truth inverts. Subjective feeling becomes unimpeachable revelation. Objective reality becomes suspect. This is not compassion. It is the abolition of shared reality. In every argument, demand definitions, test consistency, require evidence, expose unfalsifiable claims, identify fallacies, refuse to accept tears or tone as substitutes for substance. You are not obligated to debate someone who refuses these terms. State your position once. Withdraw from bad faith engagement. 8. Anchor in faith and reason as twin pillars. Western civilization rests on the synthesis of Jerusalem and Athens, Rome and Canterbury. Faith without reason becomes superstition. Reason without faith becomes nihilism. Together, they constitute the inheritance that built cathedrals, universities, constitutions, and the scientific method. The attempt to sever this synthesis produces both the sterile atheism of the modern left and the reactive fundamentalism that cannot articulate its own tradition. Return to the sources: Scripture, the Church Fathers, the Scholastics, the Stoics, the Greek philosophers. Understand natural law, that moral order is not invented but discovered, woven into the fabric of creation. This is the ground that cannot be shifted by committee vote. I-Inks build parallel local institutions. The captured institutions will not reform from within. They must be abandoned and replaced. This is not retreat. It is strategic decentralization. Form men's groups, formal or informal, that meet regularly for mutual support, accountability, skill building, and fellowship. Revive the lodge, the guild, the fraternal order. These were not quaint customs. They were the infrastructure of male civil society. Build family networks, multiple households sharing resources, homeschooling cooperatives, mutual aid, outside state welfare. Create businesses that hire on merit, operate on principle, and refuse to comply with ideological extortion beyond legal minimums. Localism is the antidote to globalism. A man known by name, accountable to neighbors, invested in a place. This is the fabric that bureaucracy cannot replicate. Master discipline, self-command, everything depends on this. A man who cannot govern himself cannot govern a household, an institution, or a movement. This means no pornography, which rewires neural reward pathways and converts sexual energy into sterile consumption. No excessive alcohol or substances, no social media addiction, no complaining, no blame shifting, no waiting for rescue. Set standards, meet them, fail, recalibrate. Meet them again, this is the forge. A man who has not struggled with his own discipline has nothing to teach anyone. The therapeutic bureaucracy needs dependent, anxious, compliant men who outsource their emotional regulation to HR departments and pharmaceutical solutions. Self-command is the act of war that makes you ungovernable by manipulation. Summary law, feminismus delendus est. But the thing to be destroyed is not women. It is the lie that men and women flourish under permanent sex war. The restoration is not domination. It is the re-establishment of complementary order, male and female, husband and wife, father and mother, household and community, faith and reason, liberty and duty, each in its proper place under natural law, ordered toward the true, the good, and the beautiful. This is not a proposal, it is a return. Cultural revolution ratchet defines safety not as physical protection, but as freedom from cognitive dissonance and emotional discomfort. Establish lived experience as the highest form of knowledge, superior to data and logic. Create a class of safety officers, often women, who have the power to veto decisions based on subjective impact. Mandate unconscious bias training, which pathologizes normal male behavior as systemic oppression. Replace merit-based promotion with equity metrics, ensuring outcomes match demographic proportions. Criminalize tone as a form of violence, allowing women to dismiss men's arguments based on delivery. Institutionalize trauma as a status symbol, granting immunity from criticism and accountability. Convert the workplace from a place of production to a place of therapeutic performance. Erase the concept of objective truth in favor of multiple realities based on identity. Finalize the inversion. The man is the problem. The woman is the solution. The bureaucracy is the priest. Ways home. Reclaim the word safety to mean physical and economic security, not emotional coddling. Restore the authority of the father-husband as the rational head of the household and enterprise. Return to meritocracy. Reward competence, courage, and contribution regardless of gender. Re-establish due process, presumption of innocence, right to confront accusers, and impartial judgment. Distinguish between offense and harm. Not all discomfort is injustice. Honor the mother, recognize the unique value of feminine nurturing without elevating it above masculine provision. Restore the fire-pitted ritual. Create spaces for men to bond through shared struggle and achievement, not shared complaint. Reject lived experience as the sole arbiter of truth. Combine it with reason and evidence. Reclaim masculinity. Define it not by oppression, but by responsibility, protection, and provision. Build parallel institutions, men's clubs, men's businesses, and men's communities that operate on natural law principles, outside the reach of the therapeutic state. I want you to remember where we came from. We came from fire. Not metaphorical fire, I mean the actual fire, the one men gathered around when the work was done, when the beast was dressed and the grain was stored, when the children were tucked in and the stars were the only roof. Around that fire, a man who lied was corrected, a man who shirked was named, a man who spoke true was heard, regardless of whether his tone pleased the listeners, because the listeners understood that truth spoken roughly is still truth, and comfort spoken falsely is still a lie. That fire was the first court, the first classroom, the first church. Its only protocol was this: what happened? Not how did it make you feel about what happened. Not what does your lived experience suggest about the structural implications of what happened. Simply what happened, and then what do we do about it? That is the origin of justice. That is the grammar of civilization. Everything else, every institution, every constitution, every code of law, is just that fire, formalized and scaled. When the formalization forgets the fire, the institution is already dead. It just hasn't fallen down yet. The inversion I have spent these pages mapping for you is not a mistake. It is not an overcorrection by well-meaning people who went a little too far. It is an engineered replacement of that fire's logic with the logic of the nursery. In the nursery, feeling is king. In the nursery, the child who cries loudest gets the most attention. In the nursery, there is no merit, no due process, no confrontation of evidence. There is only the management of distress. And the architects of this inversion, whether they know it or not, have taken the nursery and called it a workplace, a university, a courtroom, a marriage. They have taken the adult world, where facts are sovereign, where consequences attach to choices, where the logos demands that we subordinate our preferences to reality, and they have dissolved it into a warm bath of grievance and therapy speak, where whoever claims the most pain receives the most power, and whoever demands evidence is exiled as cruel. This is the evil, and I use that word with the full weight of my inheritance. It is evil because it lies. It calls justice harm. It calls evidence violence. It calls fatherhood control. It calls merit privilege. And behind every redefined word, a functionary sits in a gray office processing the wreckage of another family, another career, another man who dared to speak as though reality were real. The cost is not abstract. The cost is measured in fathers who have not seen their children in years, in young men who believe their ambition is a sin, in boys drugged into compliance because the energy of masculinity was reclassified as a disorder, in women who were promised liberation and received instead a cubicle, a pill, and a cat, The inversion measures its success by the number of dependencies it creates and calls that progress. But here's what the inversion cannot survive: a single man who refuses to participate in the lie, not a man who rages in comment sections, not a man who performs defiance for clicks. A man who in the actual room, when the HR officer says she felt unsafe when you raised your voice during the meeting, looks that officer in the eye and says, "What did I say that was false?" If nothing I said was false, then her feeling does not constitute evidence of wrongdoing, and I will not apologize for stating accurate information in a firm register. If you wish to discipline me for tone, document the standard and apply it uniformly, or acknowledge that this standard is being applied selectively and explain why. That man in that moment has relit the fire. He has restored the primacy of fact over feeling in the only jurisdiction he directly controls, his own speech. He has refused the baptism into the therapeutic church. And one such refusal does more to restore natural order than 10,000 online manifestos, because it is performed in the theater where the inversion actually operates, at the moment when submission is expected and compliance would be invisible. Do that today. Do it once. Do it calmly, with your evidence in hand and your voice steady, and watch what happens to the room around you. You will be astonished at how many people have been waiting for someone to say the obvious. The inversion survives on the assumption that no one will challenge its first premise. Challenge it, the fire is still in you. It was put there by every father who ever told his son to stand up, look the other man in the eye, and speak the truth without apology. That lineage does not end with you. Do not let it. Sponsored book. Rational Men, Irrational Women, Navigating the Gender Wars. I've been where you are. I've felt the frustration, the confusion, the anger. I've watched good men, men who worked hard, who treated women with respect, who played by the rules, get chewed up and spit out by a system that doesn't care about them. I've seen the lies of modern feminism, the way it promises equality but delivers chaos. I've lived through the double standards, the manipulation, the emotional warfare. And I've come out the other side with something most men never find: clarity. This book is for men who are tired of being told they're the problem. It's for men who've been lied to about what it means to be a man, who've been shamed for their strength and mocked for their vulnerability. It's for men who want to understand why the world feels so upside down and who are ready to take back control of their lives. If you're a man who's been burned by bad relationships, who's felt the sting of betrayal, who's wondered why you always seem to be the one left holding the bag, this book is for you. But let me be clear, this isn't a book for everyone. If you're a woman who's deeply invested in the feminist narrative, if you're a man who's bought into the idea that masculinity is toxic, if you're someone who thinks the world would be better off without men, put this book down. Go read something else. This isn't for you. This is for men who are ready to face the hard truths about the world we live in, who are ready to stop being victims and start being leaders. What you'll find in these pages is a no-nonsense guide to navigating the gender wars. You'll learn why women who've been damaged by their pasts often seek out chaos instead of peace. You'll understand the real meaning of gender equality and why it's a myth. You'll discover how to spot the red flags in relationships, how to protect yourself from emotional manipulation, and how to rebuild your masculine identity in a world that's constantly trying to tear it down. This isn't just theory. This is practical, actionable advice based on years of research, personal experience, and the hard-earned wisdom of men who've been through the fire. You'll walk away from this book with a clearer understanding of who you are, what you want, and how to get it. You'll be armed with the knowledge you need to make better decisions, to avoid the traps that have ensnared so many men before you, and to live a life of purpose, power, and peace. So if you're ready to stop being a pawn in someone else's game, if you're ready to take control of your life and your future, then keep reading. But if you're not ready to face the truth, if you're not ready to do the hard work of reclaiming your masculinity, then put this book down, because the road ahead isn't easy. But for those who are willing to walk it, the rewards are worth it. Rational Men, Irrational Women, Navigating the Gender Wars, written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.